to the opposition leader's campaign now and bring in our political reporter, Jonathan Lee. Jonathan has been following Anthony Albanese, and you're in Cairns today. What can we expect from the Labor leader, Jono?
Kieran, good morning to you. We're told Mr Albanese will attend a church service here in Cairns. He obviously did something very similar on Friday with the Maronite Christian service he attended in Western Sydney, part of Sydney's multicultural heartland. He's up here in Leichhardt at the moment, a margin of 4.2%. It's marginal. It's currently held by Warren Entsch. It's something the Labor Party thinks that they can take in one of a number of seats they need to pick up if they are to claim government. But it has certainly been a frustrating and difficult week for Anthony Albanese as he stumbled between issues. And it's interesting, Kieran, considering for a number of months now we've been told that Anthony Albanese would be a much better campaigner than Bill Shorten, and it certainly hasn't looked that way on the ground. I've gone through some of the issues over the past week, Kieran, if you don't mind me rattling them off to the audience. We had the original stumble on figures on day one, event one, where he couldn't name the rates or the unemployment figures. We had the issue around the Parliamentary Budget Office costings, which weren't actually costed by the PBO, but based on figures by the PBO. That's still a difference. A suggestion he might dismantle the border protection, saying that offshore processing wouldn't be needed. An hour and a half later, he then walked back on that, saying, no, we're not changing border protection. But it was the confusion of the day there. We had the short press conference after he said that he was going to take all questions because he wasn't Scott Morrison. He made a virtue of saying that he was going to take all questions at press conferences. He cut that one short to 8 minutes that day because there were tough questions around what potential partnership there would be with the Greens, what he was doing to help those on welfare. And we also had yesterday, we had a $15 million announcement around nurses at a skin clinic where journalists were asked not to attend. We were told the room was too small, so we couldn't go. We fought to have one journalist being able to be a part of that smaller press pack. It's unprecedented in many ways. We had to do it the day before because of an issue with COVID, but it's something the journalists have stood up and fought for and said, no, if there is going to be a media event and you want cameras to be there or inviting cameras to be there, we need to have a journalist. As for what we don't know, Kieran, a separate list. We don't know how many nurses are going to be needed as part of Anthony Albanese's aged care policy. He wants to put nurses in all aged care homes. We don't know how many are needed. We don't know how long it will take to train those nurses. And yesterday we had another announcement about those nurses in skin clinics. So how many more nurses do we need? Where are they coming from? We don't know how the Labor Party will lift wages. We know cost of living is an enormous issue. We don't know what it will do for pensioners or those on the dole. And we don't know what's going to happen with defence spending. Mr Albanese said yesterday it would be greater than 2% and do whatever it takes. We know that if we're going to have nuclear attack class submarines, that figure is going to go towards 3% or probably even higher. And there's also questions around the federal ICAC. We know it would be tougher than the government's, but there's still yet to be decent meat on the bone there, Kieran.
And Jonathan, you quizzed the Shadow Treasurer on Labor's economic plans yesterday.
We did. We look for point of differences in this campaign, and the Labor Party has been very careful to make sure there's no air gap between them and the government on a whole range of issues. But what they're looking to do is claim that they are the better economic managers because the government has run up an enormous debt. It is true, debt has gone through the ceiling and it is unprecedented heights. The point I was putting to the alternate Treasurer, Mr Chalmers, is that Labor has backed a lot of that spending on health and the economy, and Labor would have made other decisions which would have exacerbated that spending. Have a listen. You wanted to spend more on JobKeeper, $45 billion, which many would now say would have been wasted money, and you also wanted to spend an extra $6 billion on paying people to be vaccinated. How would the nation's debt not have been higher under your government?
Now, what we tried to do for the last almost 3 years is to agree where we can with the government's policy and disagree where we must. And where there was substantial disagreement with the government was not necessarily on the level of support being provided in the economy, but the quality of that support. Now, Josh Frydenberg was warned repeatedly about wastage in the JobKeeper program. And this is an issue close to my heart, as I know it is to Nita's and Elida's and Anthony. Because if you just let me finish. The wastage in the JobKeeper program saw at least $20 billion go to companies which were already profitable and didn't need support, at the same time as the government was denying support to tourism operators and small businesses in this wonderful town that we're in now.
Kieran, so we have seen a change of tact in some regards from Mr Albanese. The press conferences are shorter now. He's talking more over the questions as they come in, preventing them interrupting him. That's a technique which Scott Morrison has been working on for a while now and is very effective for him. Anthony Albanese is very well received on the ground when he goes up to people. We don't see people heckling or abusing him. But one thing we've noticed with a lot of people we randomly talk to as we pass is they still don't know if they will vote for him. They're concerned about the gap on day one. It's something a number of people have brought up, even in multicultural areas. So they're umming and ahhing about, is Anthony Albanese their man? They don't necessarily like Scott Morrison, but perhaps they're willing to tolerate him again if it's good for the country and good for their hip pocket.
Joining us live from Cairns, Jonathan Lee, thank you for that update.